says live now.
Hello, and welcome to I would say impromptu stream, but we kind of planned it a few days ago, so not quite impromptu. Me and CP from Willy Screedia are counting down the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all 22 movies in the series thus far. You see a lot of these, I think, when like superhero franchises come out, it's like, right, the DCU ranked like every time a new movie comes out. But this time I think it's a bit more justified, considering Endgame just came out and seems to cap off.
Well, technically, we should have waited until after Spider-Man, whatever the hell, because isn't that technically the end of Phase 3?
Apparently, that's what they say. Yeah.
All right, so we'll be back in a couple months.
Yeah. There's a lot of controversy around that. Actually, did it take place before Endgame? How are all the kids the same age and still in school? And by the way, full disclosure, spoilers for any of the Marvel movies, especially Endgame. And I think you've talked about Endgame for an accumulative, like, probably 12 hours at this point on various streams over the past week.
I did it like 8 of the 10 hours I was awake on Sunday. So
I haven't released my spoiler-rific review yet, so you'll get my first thoughts on it. But me and Connie are going to do an end of the road to Endgame thing. It'll probably take like an hour because we got so much to say. But we'll talk about that a little bit, I'm assuming, near the end of our respective lists. I would hope so. And we're going to count down the 22 movies from our least favorite to favorite and just chat through the films. I have the benefit of having rewatched most of them, apart from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, which only came out like 6 weeks ago anyway, so didn't feel the need to. I mean, I think that's still out in the cinema, isn't it? It's,
yeah, it got a push too. It was second in America last week. Yeah.
I think Black Panther actually was still out when Infinity War came out. There was kind of a similar release window for those two. Anyway, so do you want to go first and kick us off with your number 22?
Least favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It's Avengers Endgame. No, it's not. It's not. It is Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And I'm not. I need to say again, I'm somebody who kind of gets flack for the amount of fatigue I have. This entire list, I'm going to say, they're decent movies. None of them are really horrible. And Captain Marvel is just the least okay of the lot, if you ask me. So I'm not typically, clickbaiting, hating on Brie Larson. It's just, the least impressive to me of the 22.
I mean, say what you want, but these days she's like the Star Wars to our stream. Whenever we're in a stream together, Star Wars always comes up, and it just seems no matter what people are talking about these days, her name comes up.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For better or worse.
I'm just feeling a lot of hatred from this.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Man hating bitch. So number 20 now. For the record, my opinion is the complete opposite of that. But my number 22 is Iron Man 2. So fairly derided. I think a lot of people point to this one as one of their least favorites or one of the weakest of the franchise. And rewatching it this time, so I guess, we started rewatching them in about February. So I've seen all of them this year. So watching it again this year, I thought, that was great. I really enjoyed that. I don't know what the fuss is. But as I watch all the other ones, it keeps sifting itself down to the bottom of the pile. I just think the final fight is just, I don't know. I like Mickey Rourke in it. He's good.
Mickey Rourke riding that wrestler train.
Oh, yeah. Turns up like with the same hair in every film, like that weird kind of like blue kind of dreaded thing. He's in the Expendables, wasn't he? Like,
oh yeah.
The year after that or something. But he's good. Sam Rockwell, so entertaining. Really, I mean, Sam Rockwell is entertaining in pretty much everything he does. But for me, it's the least favorite. It's the one, if I was to kind of, because we were watching it like as a chronological rewatch, which I don't think I'll ever do again, really. So it's going to be cherry picking from the future, and I can't see myself cherry picking this one over any of the others. So that's my number 22.
I need to state that some of these movies I just haven't seen for a while, and that goes for this. I probably haven't seen it since it was out. My number 21 is Thor: The Dark World. And again, off memory, I really wasn't too fond of it.
Yeah,
Actually,
that's another one that a lot of people point to. I think it's not a favorite.
yeah, the Thor movies in as a whole are kind of, they're out there, like literally, they're a bit out there. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes a bit to get me into a movie like that, and Dark World was especially off.
Okay. My number 21 is The Incredible Hulk. She's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the MCU. I think some people don't even really refer to it as part of or think of it. In fact, I think Marvel did like a thank you for all the the memories of the past 11 years, and they had like the title of every movie except for The Incredible Hulk. So kind of just sweep Edward Norton under the carpet there. Rewatching it this year, I actually really enjoyed it more than I have before. It's not a particularly great film, it's very decent. But yeah, still in the bottom end. And I think the major thing for me is the fact that it feels so removed from everything else because Edward Norton only did that movie. Hulk of the MCU is Mark Ruffalo, just purely based on numbers at this point, and so it just kind of doesn't seem to connect. And that's one thing I can say with Endgame is that it made everything feel connected. And the whole series as a whole, there's always references, inter-references, left, right, and center, but that one just kind of sticks out as it's not quite fully, apart from what's his name, William Hurt's character, who pops up later on. But
yeah. My number 20 is The Incredible Hulk.
Oh, there you go.
For many of the same reasons. Again, none of these are bad. I would say it's just a a ho hum, shoulder shruggy type movie. It is a shame because I don't know if it's because of Edward Norton or what, but it would be really interesting just to see what they would have done just with one sequel of it, or if with the same direction of this movie, because it is kind of odd, but just to see. I mean, hell, there's a couple of Thor movies that I marvel at the I marvel at the fact that they exist. So it would just be unique to see what more of it would be. Maybe it would improve my thought. But again, not bad. Just me.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, what would it have been like if it was Mark Ruffalo from the beginning?
Oh yeah,
sure. And conversely, what if Edward Norton had stuck around? Just intriguing, really. But it's just one of those
a really fun what if, yeah.
But yeah, and a lot of these are. I mean, there's films that are origin stories, and so they're just setting up everything. And this one's quite a heavy. Well, actually, no, it isn't actually, because the film opens, he's already Hulk, and so you kind of they fill in the blanks later on.
Yeah,
but it very much feels to me like a really good origin movie that sets the table for one where you can get into it a bit more in the next one.
Sure. And if you think about it, all these origins, Hulk came out right around the same time as Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. They're not too far off from one another. They're kind of contained in their own story. So it does fit as far as origin stories are concerned with MCU. It does fit.
My number 20 is Captain America: The First Avenger. So this was probably the first time I'd properly seen it. I went to see it in the cinema. It was the first Marvel MCU film we saw in the cinema, and I fell asleep during there's an attack on one of the bases, and I think it's when Red Skull reveals himself to be Red Skull, and fell asleep a little bit. But I really enjoyed it at the time, and I think this is actually where I start loving the movies. Actually, again, I really enjoyed the other two, Hulk and Iron Man 2, but from here on out, I pretty much think, these are really good times that I really enjoy. And over, I guess I should just set the stage for anyone who doesn't know that I'm not like an uber fan of the MCU. It's not like Star Wars for me is like the one franchise I'm the most invested in, like emotionally and nostalgically, I suppose. The MCU, it took me a while to get into them, really. It was around the time the Avengers came out that I fully got on board. But I do love most of them. So, again, at this point, we're just kind of like splitting hairs, really. At least up until like the top 5, when it becomes a bit more clear. as to like real favorites. But yeah, Captain America: The First Avenger, I think it's really good. I really enjoy it. I like that it's different from all the others, set in that time period. Not the de-aging, the de-muscling of Chris Evans is a
The
very.
shrinking.
I feel they went a bit too far. You know, it's like
Yeah.
he just looks like I don't know. He just looks like he's got a condition where he's just like those people who don't, they don't grow beyond a certain point. And the mouth looks a bit weird, but it works for the story, and I really like Chris Evans in the role, so it's a good origin, and sets up a lot of things that continue to become part of the story almost 10 years later. So, yeah.
So my 19 is Thor. And again, a little little secret. The Thor movies aren't that big a deal to me, and here's another one of them. Just didn't do it for me. Yawn. And I haven't seen it. The Thor movies I haven't seen since they came out. Yeah, well, even though Ragnarok only recently came out,
Sure.
They're movies that I just haven't revisited.
Well, much as I'd like to kind of make a joke out of this and drag out talking about Captain Marvel and make you think I've got it really high, my number 19 is Captain Marvel. Really enjoyed it. It was really good. Not particularly great, it's kind of the tried and tested formula. I certainly didn't have the problems with it other people did. Like the whole Nick Fury thing with the eye. I just find it funny. I just find it funny. Like, do we need to take it that seriously? Yeah, I
don't have a problem with that. It's just
not that you do, but other people who've got particularly uppity about it.
Her character, just she's the same for the most part, right? Am I?
I don't know. It's a tricky one because she's someone who's like lost her memories and so on, and I mean, she's I think proved herself to be a great actress. I don't think that they just picked a bland actress or anything, but. Again, I don't get the whole she shows no emotions because I think she does. It's just one of those things. But yeah, the cat thing is in my mind because after that we watched Winter Soldier, where Nick Fury is like, the last time I trusted someone, I lost my eye or whatever. There's just funny little throwaway thing. Like I don't think it's that serious.
Right.
But anyway, as a film, not too spectacular, but just really enjoyable. So that's pretty much it.
My 18 is Iron Man 2. I think of the Marvel movies, I have a soft spot for the Iron Man films, and as much as everybody hates on Iron Man 2, clearly I enjoy it more than a couple of other movies. I recognize the flaws of it, but still have a pretty decent time with that movie.
Yeah. What'd you make of Mickey Rourke's unique accent in the film?
Unique is a good way to put it. I mean, it's like I wrote, like I said earlier, fresh on the heels of his wrestler performance and kind of being put in movies that maybe wouldn't be done 3 years later or 3 years sooner. Just riding that wave.
Yeah, for sure. My number 18 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. When I saw this, I loved it. I thought it was great. Much like the first Guardians, it had two moments in it that I thought were awful. And I just think James Gunn is such a great person who can write a really great film and then just like kind of just stop it a couple of times with the humor that just doesn't fit at all for me. With this film, it's the David Hasselhoff cameo, which I think is like the most ill-timed cameo I think I've ever seen. And Connie disagrees with me on this one. She finds it as a very kind of not powerful moment, but the Kurt Russell character Ego, who can essentially do anything, transforms into David Hasselhoff to kind of what's the term? I can't think of the term. He does it as a fuck you to Chris Pratt. We'll just say that, because Chris Pratt's character grew up idolizing David Hasselhoff because he had no dad. And so he takes the form of David Hasselhoff. But you have David Hasselhoff acting in that scene, and it just comes off as a gag to me. And I'm just like, wow, you just had like the most the darkest moment I think of the whole series up until that point was when he says to Star-Lord, "It really killed me to put that tumor in your mother's head."
Mm.
And then he turns into
Mm.
David Hasselhoff, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then at the end, he's like, "You shouldn't have killed my mom and squished my Walkman." And then
Mom Walkman.
and then he turns into Pac-Man, a giant Pac-Man, as he's fighting the guy who killed his mom. And I'm just like, it's cool, I guess, but would he really be thinking in his head, "I'm gonna kill? Ooh, I can turn into Pac-Man now," you know? But revisiting it, I enjoyed it the least I ever have. I still think it's really good. The ending with Yondu is fantastic. Really emotional storytelling, just top-notch stuff there. And I love that threat of almost redeeming him from the first movie and his previous kind of, dickish moves. Michael Rooker's great. But yeah, 18 for me is Guardians 2.
17 for me is Doctor Strange. I haven't seen it since it came out. I mean, it's only been a couple years now. It's perhaps the Marvel movie that kind of sticks out as a, really? You sure? Is a Marvel movie?
Mm.
It's a little abnormal, all things considered. Still a decent time. I think with stuff like Infinity War and now, of course, in Endgame, it's nice to see that version of the story get filled out a bit. And it's just, I need 2 or 3 more of these Avengers movies to get a better fix of Doctor Strange. But okay, time just seems a little out of place to me.
Well, I was going to go into my opinion, but it's coming up pretty soon on my list, so I'll wait until then. My 17 is Iron Man.
The first one?
Yeah. Again, when I first saw it, thought it was good, not great. Second time, I thought, wow, I'm really actually seeing the hype with this one. It's a really great origin story. And then this time around, it just didn't quite cut it for me from the Jeff Bridges side of it. He plays the villain, and I didn't like him that much as a villain. I don't know. I just didn't. And he's great, Jeff Bridges. He's awesome, and he does a good job. But that character, which you need a villain for the hero to go against, and he just didn't seem to cut it for me this time around. The whole stuff with Tony, his origin is great, and his arc from this egotistical prick to someone who sees the error of his ways, but at the end of the film is still an egotistical prick. So like they don't do a full switcheroo on him. I like how his character evolves, but it's a great starting point for him. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. So my number 16 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Much like you, I had it considerably higher when I first watched it. And I mean, you basically said all of it, but the thing I would kind of add as an extra little exclamation point and everything is the stuff that they do with Yondu is such a great way to end the movie. It's almost a shame that they do all that weird hokey shit in the middle with him and Kurt Russell. Like you could have really had it if you just filled the whole movie with this Yondu thing and made it somehow about that. The movie could have been so much fuller an experience. It's just really peaks and valleys that movie goes through.
Yeah.
Strange. It's really strange.
And then Kurt Russell's one of my all-time favorite actors, so it's a thrill for me just to see him in one of these movies, and I think he does a really good job. But you might be onto something there, I think. But I still think it has resonance at the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
when it hits, it's great. When it doesn't.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. And a special shout out to Drax. I think Batista just came out of nowhere with that role. Obviously in the first one as well, but really funny in the second one. My number 16 is Iron Man 3. Always like this one. I understand it's not seen too fondly, but yeah. So I guess it is actually my favorite Iron Man film as well. I just love the Ben Kingsley twist. I just think it's hilarious. I understand people were a bit pissed off who are comic book fans and wanted the Mandarin. I just thought it was kind of funny, and Guy Pearce does a pretty good job. One thing I can say is that the track record of Marvel and the villains isn't the best. It is tricky. I'm just looking back on the ones I've already talked about, but yeah, it's he's not a great villain, but I like him enough that it kind of flies, and I just love the whole set piece at the end with all the Iron Man suits. It's really cool, and a bit of a different story with him actually crashing his suit, and then he needs to kind of find his way back, and the interactions he has with the kid who turned up in Endgame, which was a really nice little touch, I thought.
The opening of the Predator.
Oh. Yeah.
Oh, Shane Black, you.
Oh God, yes, the same. Wow, I didn't even think about that. Very similar.
That's all I could think when the trailer came out for the Predator.
Yeah,
doing Iron Man.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Wow, that's yeah. Anyway, so not too much more to say about it, but yeah, I really like Iron Man 3.
My 15 is Ant-Man. I love Ant-Man. It's a nice little contained story. Little, excuse the pun. You want to talk about villains? I literally could not tell you what the name of the villain in that movie is right now, but
No.
just a really fun time. Yeah, all the silly size gimmicks. Probably a better movie to experience in 3D. But like I said, contained story, good time. Take it for what it is. It's like a bowl of chips. It's not a meal. Just enjoy it for what it is.
My number 15 is Doctor Strange. Similarly, I'd only seen it once, and then revisited it this time, and I was really looking forward to it because it's probably the only one I'd only seen once, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it at the time too, but I think Infinity War really helped this one because I think that he's really good at Infinity War. And in that film, he's been Doctor Strange for a while, so he's a bit more self-assured and stuff. And so getting to see the origin after that was really cool. I think he does a good job. I really liked Tilda Swinton in the film. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I don't like him that much in the film. There's something about him that's very just like overplayed. And every scene seems to be played at the same tempo. If he's really, I don't know. They just really stood out this time around. Definitely, you look at the visuals of Doctor Strange and you go, "Oh, someone was watching Inception then." They change it up a little bit, but it's very reminiscent of that. But it looks cool. Certainly not original, but it looks cool. I love the scene when she punches him out of his physical self into like his astral self, and then just takes him on this ridiculous trip. Some of the visuals are just so great. And I really appreciate how the final battle with the villain is completely different than anything we've seen before. More of a mental game than a physical one. So, yeah, I really enjoyed revisiting that one.
Yeah, so both of us have said that the Doctor Strange experience has been heightened due to extended versions of those characters. It's interesting. So my 14 is Spider-Man: Homecoming. Really weird. Like, I remember when I was making this list, I'm like, wait, we can include this, but not the Raimi ones, huh? Interesting. All right. It's fine. Again, another contained story with a little flirtation of Tony Stark there. And once again, I can't tell you who the villain is. Who's the bad guy in Homecoming?
Only one of my favorite villains in the whole MCU. It's Michael Keaton's Vulture.
Oh, right, yeah. It was all right. I had a decent enough time, but again, can't tell you anything about the villain. And now that you say it, I do remember it, but okay enough. Good time.
Okay-ish. My 14 is Thor. So I actually love the Thor movies, quite completely different to you, and clearly more than I do the Iron Man movies.
Yeah, we flip-flop on those.
Yeah, and what you were saying, you're like, they're a bit out there for me. It's out there for me. Like, I love the Asgardian stuff, and in the first one, it's not as heavy. It's the fish out of water story with Thor coming to Earth. I think Chris Hemsworth is great. I love the character. Never really expected to. You know, when I heard, okay, they're doing a Thor movie, I was like, wait, isn't that just the mythical Norse, legend? And then I didn't realize it was part of a Marvel, comics character. And I would never have expected him to kind of be played as a comedic character. And I really enjoy this one because he's really, I mean, he's thousands of years old anyway, but he feels like a cocky kind of jock in this one. And he gets taken down a peg or two. And I just really enjoy it. One thing that stands out, which is really superficial, his eyebrows are blonde, which is really strange. It just looks so weird and wrong. And clearly Joss Whedon was like, yeah, let's get those proper eyebrows back. It just looks very strange. But yeah, even revisiting this one, still, yeah, it's a favorite. I said, well, it's number 14, but this is one I would go back to again and again. And Anthony Hopkins is really good. Tom Hiddleston, they definitely overact at times, but that kind of fits the theatricality of it. You got Kenneth Branagh directing it, Shakespearean kind of pedigree, and so they play some of that stuff very seriously, but then you kind of have the comedy as well. So I enjoy it a lot.
My number 13 is Captain America: The First Avenger.
Cool.
Which does not have issue with a villain. If anything, I feel like there's times where it gets a little ambitious. But who doesn't like a good old American fighting pseudo Nazis? Really good time. I'm just gonna say really good time for every movie here in the middle. Not A+, but enjoyed myself. They could have done worse. That's for certain.
Yeah, I love the beat where he's become this super soldier. He's Captain America, and then they just trot him out as this kind of like mascot. It's just like
when the plays or whatever, where he's like, when they're doing like the plays for the soldiers, right? Like, yeah.
And then like the kind of propaganda films, just funny. My number 13 is Black Panther. Loved this one when I first saw it. Had a bit of a weird cinema experience. It was 4DX, which it's fun, but I don't think it's an ideal way to watch a movie the first go around. Revisiting it, didn't enjoy it as much, but I still really, really enjoy it. I love all the technology, even though it's just so ridiculous. Like this, they basically can just make any kind of gadget they want and just say, well, vibranium. It's just like, it's the catch-all conceit of Black Panther is like, that thing that's like the rarest metal in the world, and there's only one thing of it, which is Captain America's shield. Yeah, they have like endless resources of it, and they can make anything ever with it, and so
they're tired of this shit.
Yeah. So, but I like the world. It's just a really nice, refreshing difference. Just like the culture of it, the characters are all different. I think they did a good job setting everything up. I still feel more invested in the Wakandan civil war at the end more than the Killmonger T'Challa fight. And again, I've said it in my Black Panther review in The Road to Endgame. I still think Killmonger's a bit overrated. Very good character, very good acting, but he's kind of put on the top as like, but Heath Ledger's Joker, and like one of the best villains ever. Not quite for me, but a very well written and drawn character, and yeah, it's a really good one, Black Panther.
Sure. My number 12 is Avengers: Age of Ultron. Which has dropped a bit because I had it quite considerably higher going into this last week.
Yeah, you rewatched that recently, right?
Yeah, Emily did the Avengers crash course, and going through it, the one thing that I still quite enjoy about this movie, but I clearly weighted it a lot heavier based on this one thing, when they're saving all the people of whatever country Sokovia. That to me, it was really neat to see that. Like my big thing was, well, there's always these superheroes, but what's the cost? We never see like what it could mean. And sure enough, Age of Ultron is, you're seeing what the cost is, and just what type of people can be affected, and how they try to prevent that. But again, the rest of the movie is kind of not as good as the rest of the Avengers movies.
Yeah, it's not to compare the two or kind of have a DC versus Marvel thing, but I remember that Man of Steel was criticized for the final fight where they're just crashing through the city.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they address it in the next one. Whether or not that was because of fan reaction or not. I just love in like Batman v Superman, it's like they get to the big fight, they're going to blow up everything, and you just get these really obvious, like, TV or radio broadcasts.
Oh,
Luckily the island is completely uninhabited. Luckily
yeah.
everyone's left work at this point in time. Whereas Age of Ultron builds its whole third act around evacuating, and so
Yeah.
it becomes more part of the story than a throwaway kind of, okay, just forget about this, guys, let's just focus on the
Yeah, that's something I really fall for. Like, if I get it, they're comic book movies,
Yeah.
a great deal of fiction. But if you take that little bit of realism, like, focusing on saving people, like, that really goes a long way with me. And it did for this movie.
My number 12 is Thor: The Dark World. I'm quite the fan of this one. I readily admit it's one of the weaker ones. It's not one I'd stand behind. And I would say that Black Panther, Thor, Doctor Strange, Iron Man 3, Iron Man, maybe even Guardians 2 are better films. But I just enjoy it a little bit more. I like that it takes place more in Asgard. I love that side of it. So it's just, for me, it's personal preference. The villain is just so bland. It's just dark elf done. And I was saying in the review of it, not to keep talking about it, but when we rewatched it, I just found myself so uninterested in all the villain's parts. The story's happening, it cuts to the villain and his plans. I'm just like, I don't care. Just very, very bland. But it gives gives Thor someone to fight at the end. And I love the whole kind of fight through the different realms where they're like, hitting each other through London and cars are flying through the dark world and stuff. Like, I enjoy that stuff. Yeah, not one of the best, but it's one I've always really, really enjoyed. So
Sure.
It's up there for me.
Sure. We're at 11, right? 11.
Yep.
My 11 is Ant-Man and Wasp, which again contained. This is post Civil War. Actually, technically, it was post Infinity War. This movie came out after Infinity War, but that's apples and potatoes here. The villain whose name again slips me, I quite enjoyed that character. It was a neat.
Yeah.
The hell, her name is definitely slipped my mind, and
I think like her kind of comic booky name was Ghost or something like that. I don't remember the actual her human name, but yeah, it was a cool way to work within the realms of the technology that Ant-Man had already established, I think.
Right, and a fun way to introduce Wasp, Kate from Lost. Not heavy-handed or anything. I didn't care about anybody's sexuality or anything. It was just, all right, cool. They're helping each other. A little bit of romantic friction of sorts, but you kind of expect that with some of these movies. And again, the story's contained enough where I'm fine with it. It's just a little mini heist.
Yeah. Alex, if you're still watching, that's an in-joke that no one is ever going to get, but they got a chuckle at me.
What happened?
Just one of my friends in the chat.
Oh.
It was just an inside joke that's so inside that Ant-Man probably couldn't find it when he was shrunk down. So number 11 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy. I think I rated this like 3.5 out of 5 when I first saw it. Was really pleasantly surprised. This was a weird one, like when it came out, because they started out Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, fairly established character. People at least knew them by name enough. And then you have the Guardians at who, the trailer comes out, it's this wacky sci-fi. It's like, what are they doing? And it's a gamble that really paid off for them. And then the hype built up. And this is amazing. So went to go see it, enjoyed it, hated the ending. The whole dance off, bro, like just put an arrow through my face. Like, I just because I thought it was Ronan is another villain who's very bland to me. Just what
are you doing?
Yeah, he does what he does the best he can with the limited role he's been given.
Sure.
But every viewing of this, I enjoy it even more, and I can almost excuse me. I can almost look past the dance off bro moment. Connie says she just tolerates it now. She could just like, but it's a step too far, I think, you know. And I listened to the audio commentary for this like 2 weeks ago. James Gunn said this whole scene with the dance off, I had it in the script, wasn't sure if it was good, and I decided we'd play it out on the set, see if Chris Pratt could pull it off, and boy did he pull it off. And I'm like, you should have gone with your instincts. Like, is this good? Is it not? No one else seems to care though, so what does it really matter as far as I'm concerned? But you know, and again, the whole film, I just really enjoy the group, the camaraderie that builds. I really like Rocket Raccoon and Drax. Star-Lord is fine, you know. I mean, obviously he's kind of the center of the film, and that opening with his mother is kind of just heartbreaking. Even Gamora, I think she's a really cool character. It seems like Zoe Saldana has quite a monopoly on big sci-fi franchises.
Yeah.
I think she'll probably end up being in the 2 biggest movies of all time in the next few weeks, in pretty big roles.
Yeah.
But the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it. The music is a big part of it. I think it just makes it a bit more unique, and I love it. But again, wish I could just take out that dance off. But it's a very petty thing, I know. But it always just rubs me the wrong way, because I feel like everything was, and you just had that moment with Groot at the end when he sacrifices himself, just an incredible moment. And then you kind of dispel that a bit with I don't know, just a bit too far for me. You know? I get he's trying to distract him. It works as an actual tactic in the context of the scene, but personal preference. But I've never enjoyed it as much as I have this year, so it's shot up my list.
So this movie has made my top 10, which is basically half. Iron Man 3 is my number 10.
Nice. I like it.
And am I a little disappointed with the whole angle they took in the middle? Sure, but
and I can see that. I can see people getting let down by that for sure.
Well, I'm not totally against it. If they went and didn't have that little switcheroo, who knows what I would have thought of this movie? But I enjoyed it. It's just it's a little bit of a hiccup in the middle. Otherwise it'd be much higher. And again, I don't hate it. The little switcheroo, gotcha. Oops, just kidding. But if it weren't that, this movie might be top 3 for me. I really enjoyed this movie. Yeah, but again, I'm a bit of an Iron Man mark, so that take that with a grain of salt.
They just jobbed out the Mandarin in the middle there. What can I say?
They chopped.
But I like how it deals with his kind of quasi post-traumatic stress from the Avengers,
Yes.
and then you have this very kind of terrorist kind of angle with Mandarin, and he's just kind of like, fuck, I need to get this guy. And it turns out to be something altogether more sinister and personal when you get revealed what.
And I think that's part of, because I'm so jaded or exhausted with this genre of films, when it gets real like that, that's when I'm like, yes, give me more of this. Or if it subverts to such a far place, I don't want a hero's journey. With the superhero subgenre, I like it when they get close to real, and that it felt like you said, terrorism. It felt legit for a bit there. And I enjoyed that. And maybe not enjoyed, but appreciated.
Yeah. It just gets you, it's a more visceral entry point to a villain when it's something that you can kind of recognize in the real world, and it's a bit more relatable than, I am going to destroy the galaxy.
Ben Kingsley's a legit actor. Shane Black's having fun. I'm convinced. He's just having a good time.
Yeah. My number 10 is Spider-Man: Homecoming. I just think it's great. I really enjoy it. I was skeptical when they rebooted Spider-Man again. Not that I was a fan of the what's his name, Andrew Garfield movies. They're okay.
They're amazing. What are you talking about? Amazing 1 and 2.
I love the balls of the end of the second one when they spoilers killed Gwen Stacy, but again, that's kind of an iconic storyline in the comics. But I wasn't too sad to see them kind of just again brush that under the carpet. But again, I was like, another Spider-Man. And probably my favorite thing about this film is he's Spider-Man. The end. There's no origin. There's no him getting bitten by a spider. You get a little bit of that in Civil War, where he's like in the early stages. Doesn't have his suit yet because Stark gives it to him. But we get the first full look at him, and obviously you've been sold on Civil War. How Tom Holland is as Spider-Man. And I thought, okay, I'm actually quite sold on this kid. What about a whole movie? I think it was smart to bring in Iron Man to kind of almost hold the movie up a little bit every now and again. But again, on top of enjoying that it's not an origin story, I think Michael Keaton's Vulture just rounds off the whole package for me, because he's a guy you understand. Like he had his livelihood taken away from him at the beginning of the movie. I love how it interconnects as well. It starts at the Avengers tower post Battle of New York, and he's the crew cleaning up the mess. And then he decides to use some of that alien tech to sell weapons, and I love how that ties in with Peter's little romance with this girl, and he knocks on the door for prom and opens the door. Michael Keaton's there, and I remember in the cinema like the gasp from the crowd, and like Norwegian crowds are fairly, so what's the word? They're not very lively to put it, to say the least. But there was a gasp when that happened, and it's such a great scene because you're not sure if he knows who he is. And I'd forgotten when we rewatched it a couple of weeks ago. He drives them to the prom, and he still doesn't know, but I wasn't sure. And he's asking Peter these questions, and you can see in his eyes he's putting two and two together. And the look on his face when he realizes this is the guy who's been a thorn in my side is so brilliant. He's so great. So one of my favorite villains. And at the end of the film, it's not about stopping and killing the villain. It's about stopping him. And at the very end, Keaton doesn't give away that he knows who Spider-Man is, because he kind of respects him in some weird ways. It's just a different villain to hero relationship that I really enjoyed. And the action's good humor. So yeah.
Have you ever come across this in your many viewings in Norway when the subtitles are up? They'll laugh at a laugh line a little bit before it's delivered.
Yep.
And it's a little jarring. When I was in Denmark, I'm like, why are they? Oh, it's like really jarring to hear the laugh a second or two too soon. It's like, what?
To keep on topic, when I saw Endgame at the midnight, we watched Infinity War directly beforehand in the cinema. Really fun, nice, perfect way to ride into Endgame. But it was the same thing where everyone in the cinema has seen the Infinity War before, and you get to the line where it's like, who's Gamora? I'll do you one better. All this, and what the punchline is, and people are starting to laugh before it happens.
Yeah.
But in that case, when we've both lived in Scandinavian countries where they have the Scandinavian language, in your case Danish, and mine Norwegian, on the bottom of the screen. And this is your first time viewing the movie, you don't know the punchline.
Yeah.
But everyone else seems to get it just a split second before you.
They've read it a couple of seconds. Yeah. You're getting it. It's such a bizarre experience.
It's quite strange, yeah.
I've done that the other way around, though. We watched I think it was a French movie the other day, and I was laughing before, because there was no words, and I laughed before the person said something. So it's kind of funky.
Yeah. But yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming, really, really enjoyed. And I think whenever they do reboot Spider-Man, because it's going to happen at some point, I think they should just make Aunt May like 2 years old. It's just this Benjamin Button effect where she's just getting younger in every franchise.
Marissa Tomei, she's not hot, not that hot to look at. That's for damn sure. I don't mind it at all.
All right, you're number 9.
My number 9 is Black Panther.
Nice.
Almost echoing basically everything you said. I wasn't so rah about Michael Jordan. A solid performance. I don't think he was the be all end all. This is the savior of villains for all of comic bookdom.
Right. Well, people talk about they're going to bring him back for the second one, or people want to see him get brought back, and I'll do like a solo movie and all this. And it is an interesting character. I do like his, kind of his tortured backstory. But I found more entertainment out of Andy Serkis's crazy, unhinged South African character.
I was just gonna say, Andy Serkis is something I felt we got ripped off with him. When he held? Was he when he was seated and he was waiting for them to help? I don't know if he was chained to the seat or ever like that when he was like he knew he was in control like that. I wanted more of that, Andy Serkis, and to actually see Andy Serkis. It wasn't, some dinosaur or an ape sitting in it. Like, how often do you get to see Andy Serkis if it's not 13 going on 30?
And still, he completely becomes someone different.
Yeah,
he's just a great, an amazing character actor, I would say, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a movie that's paint by numbers as far as superhero origin story is concerned.
Yeah.
But they do it well. Like
very well.
There's a reason DC's trying to ape their shit because they know what they're doing. It's brilliant. It's something that personally I may not ever want to go back to, but I know it's great. Like there's it's just my personal taste here. It's still pretty high for me, but yeah, that's my 9.
Yeah,
Black Panther.
My number 9 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. I love this one. It's really fun, and I was really emotionally invested in the Michael Douglas storyline. The idea that you could lose your wife, but she's not. Maybe it's difficult because this isn't something that can happen in the real world. But for all intents and purposes, your wife is dead. But maybe there's a way to get her back. But you can't quite figure it out. And you spend 10 years trying to do it. You get nowhere. You've ruined your relationship with your daughter. And then after all this time, you're an old man. And now there might be a chance to get her back again. So I was just so on board for that. And I really like Paul Rudd's kind of shtick. I said in our Ant-Man review that by all accounts of my taste, he should be an actor who I find really grating and annoying by the way that he acts. But I like him in everything. So he fits very smoothly into the Marvel universe for me, and I like the dynamic with him. And I forget the actual character's name, Van Dyne. Evangeline Lilly, her character, the Wasp.
Kate from Lost.
Okay, so I've never seen Lost, so that's not a frame of reference for me.
Take 108 spare hours and kiss him goodbye.
But I was actually considering rewatching and getting to all the seasons of Game of Thrones I'd never seen before the last one, and I watched one episode and I was like, no, I don't think so.
Why bother?
Why bother? Ant-Man and the Wasp. Anything else I wanted to say? Don't think so. Yeah, just really, and again, like you said, the villain's pretty good. And she makes sense as a character. It's not this like stock villain. There's actually a little bit of depth to it. And I like the side characters. I don't even know their characters' names at all, but they're like Scott's crew. They're really funny. And Michael Douglas. I really like him in these movies. And we get to see Michelle Pfeiffer, who is a favorite from back in the day. So it was cool to see her. And they always say, it seems like a running thing they have to do in every movie. Like they have a quota to be filled. They did young Michael Douglas in Ant-Man. And I think almost every subsequent Marvel movie has had someone de-aged. We had young Robert Downey Jr. And then this one was young Michelle Pfeiffer, and so on, and so on, and so on. But hey, they're having fun with it. So it's kind of cool to see, kind of depictions of actors that we have seen at that point in time in older movies kind of brought to life. Like you have like Kurt Russell circa Escape from New York in Guardians 2 for a brief scene. Anyway, so that's my number 9.
My number 8, which it could be considered Avengers, the bonus levels.
2.5.
Captain America: Civil War, which every time I've seen it twice since it came out, and I always forget that. Oh yeah, this is technically a Captain America movie.
Yeah,
because it feels very Avengers-y, because it certainly. Emily, I should have shown her that in our little Avenge binge. But the whole the struggle with Bucky is quite powerful. That I think it's at the climax where the three of them finally start going at it. It's not as heavy-handed as, or serious, should I say, as Watchmen, but it's got a very similar premise, and it's interesting to see that executed. You know, who's accountable? Again, real life stuff. You know, if you were taking out a city, somebody would have to, you know, answer to that, and that you kind of get some of that here. And again, I'm sorry.
That's probably where it kind of it feels like an extension of Age of Ultron, because they deal with that kind of, you know, and this whole movie is based on the fallout of that and the previous kind of large scale battles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the extra realism is something that I chew it up. I again, it's Avengers light. Good time.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, these films are so outlandish, really, when you think about them, and some people refer to them as science fiction. I mean, they're fantasy. You know, the minute you got a god coming in with a hammer, it's a fantasy. But setting it in the real world, I think I think that's probably a key part of the success of these films, is setting it in that real world. With Guardians of the Galaxy, I think having Star-Lord be from Earth really helps it for some reason. You know, it just gives you that connective thread of, we can almost relate to him.
Well, yeah, you experience all this nonsense through him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all you wanted to say on Civil War?
Yep. On Avengers, the DLC for Avengers Civil War.
Yeah. My number 8 is Ant-Man. I love Ant-Man. Had to do it. Had to say it. Yeah, it was a toss-up. I mean, I didn't know which to put first, but the two Ant-Man films very close together for me. Rewatching it this year, enjoyed it more than I ever have, and I loved it when it came out. So I just love the small scale, no pun intended, I promise, story. Yes, little. You know, just it's a heist film, but even just a small heist. And I love the villain, and I really think that every major character in this film is written so well, because there's motivations for everything. The villain, he gets a little bit kind of, you know, murderous and maniacal, but they explain that as he's been tampering with the technology so much it's affecting his brain chemistry, which is why Michael Douglas stopped being Ant-Man, because the whole Pym particle stuff you're not meant to be shrunk down to that size, so it messes with your head if you do it for too long. But he's someone, and again, I'm not going to go to the whole thing, but I just think every character is really written well. It's a fun movie. It's the humor feels more natural than some of the other ones, and Paul Rudd really carries that. And I really root for him to kind of sort his life out and get his daughter back. So
yeah,
even like the minor character of his daughter's stepdad, who's like a cop. He's an ex-con, so it's like, oh, the cop and the criminal, but then by the end you see he's a pretty good dude. So it kind of, you know, it's even that character thing was well done.
The thing about Paul Rudd, though, he's been in pop culture for 25 some odd years now. The one thing that if it's a gripe, it's I don't know what you call it, but it you know, I just don't buy him as a thief, because it's like, Paul Rudd, come on. It's not a genuine concern or anything. It's just like,
yeah,
I'm not buying that guy as a thief. Sorry.
I do really like that scene when he breaks in though, with all like the safe and kind of freezing it and expanding. Like, it's a cool little sequence there.
Sure.
But yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, I mean, he certainly doesn't go full "I love you, man" in this as far as his comedic you know, chops.
Right.
But so I like that he reined it in a little bit. You know, he wasn't going all, you know, completely crazy, but.
Sure.
And again, I really like Michael Douglas in these films. I just think he's a lot of fun. So there we go. That's my number 8.
Number 7 is Thor Ragnarok. Oh, excuse me, Thor Ragnarok. For as much as I don't like Thor and I like departures, Ragnarok is a fucking departure in 2/3 from everything else.
Yep.
Refreshing. If you can surprise me, that's more than enough in some cases, and this was just fun. Like, I don't expect me to write a 5,000-page novel on a story on this. It's just fun. I just had a good time. It's just so it was like a who directed Ragnarok?
Taika Waititi.
Oh, okay, so it's not even, yeah, I first it has this bizarre connection to Guardians, where it feels very, very similar in tone, in everything. It just felt like if Civil War is the Avengers DLC, then Thor Ragnarok is the Guardians of the Galaxy DLC. I had fun. I can't say much else other than fun.
No. I mean, when I saw the film, I thought, wow, I've never tried anything like this before.
yeah, really colorful, really, it's just a utter departure, just a complete departure from the other two. No more Natalie Portman. Wah, wah.
My number 7 is maybe a controversial pick here. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Phenomenal film. It really is. I would probably put this as maybe the best Marvel film as far as just like from start to finish, the writing, the execution. It's so unbelievably solid, and you just executed almost perfectly. Just a great kind of espionage thriller, and that's where I think it's fun, is when they start to resemble other genres. I mean, you have like the typical superhero origin movie. Hero becomes the hero, has to fight a villain, etc. Usually to save people. But then you have like Ant-Man, which is more of this heist situation. Or you have Winter Soldier, which is like your 70s kind of throwback kind of, political thriller, and so on. So you kind of have different flavors every now and again. So I think that really works with this one. Loved seeing this in New York when it came out, and it was the AMC cinema in New York, Manhattan.
Oh, you actually saw it in New York?
Yeah, and the crowd was great, because when Bucky is revealed as the Winter Soldier, people just like, oh shit! People just like couldn't believe it, and I'm just like, it's pretty obvious from the trailers, but this is fun. I'm enjoying this kind of really rowdy reaction to a film that isn't really like that. It's a very kind of serious movie, but I think that it really works. Like, there's just great moments. The elevator sequence is a highlight, and this is the one with Robert Redford. Yes, it is. Really love him, and I think he did a really good job in this one. And then expanding the Bucky story, which I think works even better in Civil War. So it really sets the table for that, which I'm glad that they didn't do, set up the Winter Soldier, bring Bucky back, and then have him killed at the end. I like that he continued on post this film, and yeah, it's one of the best, if not the best, just technically, overall.
My number 6 is the Avengers. And incredibly done when you consider just how much had to work, and how something like this really hadn't ever been done before, and they did it quite well. Another one, fun, perfect. I see this on a lot of people's lists, like way higher as like their favorite Avengers movie, and I don't know why I don't feel the same way. I just I don't know. I think they've improved on this movie, or the story, or the characters within this story. I think they've improved. There was a point where I actually thought that Age of Ultron was better than Avengers, but that dissipated. So I guess I'm what are we at 6, and I'm like tearing apart something. The thing that I didn't like about it, you got no real feel for New York City getting messed up. You show that a little bit, not just a cop in a street, waving people on. But it's great. What can be said about it that I won't, that I refuse to say?
Yeah, I guess they have the parts where Captain America's taken over. Like, right, we need to get these people this way and that way and stuff. So they vaguely address it, but yeah, I mean that. Oh, I'll talk about that sequence when I get to my placement of it. But yeah, I think it's to me it feels like everyone looks at Iron Man as the beginning, but this just to me seems like the launching point of everything.
Oh, sure.
Because that they announced this beforehand. I think they brought out all the actors like at Comic-Con a few years earlier. and it's like, huh, the Avengers. I mean, for me, it was like, huh, you know, I didn't really
Yeah.
know what it was, and they managed to pull it off in a way that no one else has been able to manage so far, even though they've tried.
And that's when you know it's a big deal. It's just like, oh, okay, this is something special.
I mean, they done, you know, a few movies before this, and
Mhm.
the whole MCU, as we look at it now, was fairly young at this point when this film came out. But still, it was like, oh, Thor and Captain America and Iron Man in the same scene. This is really cool.
Yeah,
It felt bigger than it had any right to be, almost.
it's, you know, like, as a poor analogy, just imagine bringing together like the Godfather universe with the Untouchables and Goodfellas, and just like that movie, like, wow, this is actually working. Like it's just, you know, you have a bunch of movies that stand well on their own, and then now you're bringing them all together and it actually works. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. My number 6 is Captain America: Civil War. Slightly prefer it to Winter Soldier. When I first saw this, I loved it, but the airport sequence I kind of checked out on. The first time, everyone was talking around that time about superhero fatigue and stuff, and I was like, I don't get it. And then I saw the airport scene, I thought, I get it, because they're not really trying to kill each other. They're just kind of trying to say, you know, obviously Captain needs to get out and take the jet away, so they're just kind of, yeah. There's even a bit where he's like, you're pulling your punches, you know. But you know, now that I've kind of come away from it a little bit and go back to it, it's just a really fun sequence where you just have this like kind of dream fights, you know, wish fulfillment, kind of just pitting like, you know, Spider-Man against Captain America, all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, I mean, it's so much more than just that airport sequence. I think the Bucky story really gets continued in a very satisfying way, I think, and quite a dramatic way at the end. I like how they took their time with that character and the complexity of Captain America's allegiance to him when no one else would want to kind of side with him, and him getting framed. Everything's really well done. And I quite like Daniel Bruhl's villain, Zemo, I think his name is, because ultimately they kind of really misdirect you towards the end, where there's these other 5, I think, Winter Soldiers, and it's like, oh my God, he's going to bring all these crazy, you know, nut jobs back, but he kills them all. And all he wants to do is just, he's like, I think the line at the end is, I know I couldn't beat the Avengers, but maybe I could make them beat each other, kind of thing. You know? That's not verbatim, but you know, it's just kind of, it's worded a bit more eloquently than that. But it's a cool idea, and I think he did a good job with that role. But it all really builds towards that kind of triple threat at the end, or a handicap match at the end with Bucky and Cap against Iron Man, which is a just fantastic scene. And really loaded when he finds out what happened to his parents, you know, and that's really threaded nicely. The movie opens with that, and you're like, oh, what's this car getting crashed, you know, and then you find out later on. So it's a top tier one for sure.
My number 5 is Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie that I had no knowledge, no concern. I didn't want to see it. Word of mouth. By Sunday, it came out Friday. By Sunday, I was like, all right, what the hell is the big deal? And I went and saw it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just so strange, like something that I had like zero investment in, knew nothing about anybody, but it like, I'm not putting it on the same level as the Holy Galaxy there. But there was times where I was like, this could be what Star Wars felt like to people when they first experienced it.
Totally.
Like these characters that you don't really know, but you know, I care. It's fun. The raccoon's quite witty. The tree doesn't say anything but I am Groot, and like it works. And you know, it beautiful looking. It was quite shot well, and again, just a really fun time, and a departure from anything that we had seen before. And yeah,
I think Bradley Cooper deserves a lot of credit purely because I can't hear him in that performance ever. You know, you have these bigger name actors who come into these things, either whether it's animation or it's CGI character, and you can tell it's them, even if they do an accent. I can't read his voice in that accent. That alone I think is impressive. So, and the whole Groot thing, which I think he's a fun character, but I've never seen this. Apparently, there's a clip of Vin Diesel voicing the Iron Giant, and it's like behind the scenes recording. And I always think about this. And he's like, "Okay, we're just going to do this take: tree, rock." And he's like, "Wait, can I just try that again?" And I haven't seen this clip, so I might be a little bit wrong. But then he goes again: tree, rock. I think we got it. Just the same kind of so the fact that he became a tree as well, and it's just I am Groot all the time, just it cracks me up. But no, I agree with that Star Wars thing, because there's been a few films over the past 10, 15 years where I thought, oh, that could be for the next generation. It never quite gets there, but
of course, Darth Maul's in this movie, or the voice of Darth Maul.
Oh yeah, Peter Serafinowicz. Yeah, I don't like him in this film. It's strange. Like, it's a bit off. You know, what a bunch of a-holes. It's like. So into the top 5, my number 5 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Wow.
Every time I see it, even from like the second I went to see it in the cinema a second time, and I thought, right, let's really look at this, because everyone's saying it's really disappointing. I guess I see it. You know, one thing I can say is Ultron is a weird one. I really like the character. I like the voice performance. I don't like the mouth articulation. It's a bit too refined and cartoony for me. I would have preferred just like the design of the mouth, but no movement, just the voice. Maybe that could have been even more sinister. But yeah, so there's things about it that don't work as well. But I still love it from start to finish, and I just enjoy it when all the characters get together. That to me is the main sell of most of these movies for me. I enjoy them the most when all the characters are brought together. So it's probably no coincidence that my top 6 are all movies where it's a combination of all those characters. But yeah, not too much to say about it. It's really funny, got some good action scenes. The weakest Avengers film for sure, but that alone gets me in the door enough where it's one of my favorites.
My number 4 is Iron Man.
Oh wow. So yeah. I had it really low.
Yeah. Everybody needed this to work for any of this to happen, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's there's been a bunch of copy paste versions of this story, but for some reason I'm a bit of a mark for Tony Stark, Iron Man, like the whole bit, like, you know, just like the little things, like, you know, he's this billionaire and the armor dudes want to get a picture with him, and he's just, yeah, sure. Like, just his, like, I bought that he was that cocky, and yeah, like there was so much about it that I was just on board for, and he just had to do a decent enough performance for this to happen, and it is. I believed every second of it as legit. Again, reality is a thing with me, and of course he would be building this thing because he's getting threatened. So I enjoyed it.
It's probably
villain kind of sucks.
Yeah,
I'll give you that, but it's Marvel, so
yeah.
Water's wet.
I mean, even though the whole arc reactor thing is, I would assume, science fiction, I think that it's the most believable Iron Man film, just in terms of his suit. Like the suit in Iron Man 1, you could almost see being real. You know,
right.
It's just the mounting of it all. But then you get to, like, you know,
nanobite stuff, just like creating things.
Yeah, just he doesn't even press a button; it just forms around him in solid steel. You know, so it's for the first one, it's a bit more. You could buy into it a little bit easier.
Sure.
My number 4 is Avengers: Infinity War. Love this one. First viewing, didn't like the ending, because we know, and I've said this before, but I really think that it would have been fun if Infinity War had come out and 2 weeks later Marvel holds a press conference, stream it live and say, we're canceling Black Panther 2, Guardians 3 is off the table, you know, no more Spider-Man, moving forward, just to play along with it a little bit more. But then, you know, they released the trailer for Spider-Man already, and but the second time I watched it, I just thought, let's just view it from the character's perspective. And just seeing Stark there, just like almost everyone in that kind of group on the planet of dead, you know, especially Peter Parker, who he feels
character dead.
When this guy dead. Took me a while to get that one. You know, I think it has a lot more weight to it. And now that Endgame is out, I think we can view it differently because we don't have to wait for a year, and it's not like they're kind of like, oh, they're not coming back, you know. But I think it's a pretty damn epic, you know, sci-fi action adventure. I think the Thor scene when he arrives in Wakanda is pretty much perfectly done. It's such a rousing moment, and bringing that, you know, original Avengers score in on that moment was just awesome. And Thanos, is it even a question? He's the best villain. I mean, is anyone really gonna? No.
No. I'm agreeing.
Oh, okay,
I went,
yeah. It's. I don't even think it's much.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
You scared me. Hello.
My brother and cousin have arrived. What are you up to?
Just need to get some food.
Oh, okay. Interrupted my live stream.
Sorry.
Sorry. What was I talking about?
Infinity War.
Yeah.
Thanos.
Yeah. Is it even a question that he's? I mean, just the Josh Brolin performance was awesome, and even like the level of detail in his face, you know, like almost photo real at times.
Sure.
That for me is a huge part of it. And I was saying to you recently, I listened to the audio commentary, and the screenwriters viewed it as Thanos' hero's journey. You know,
you stole my description for when I get to it. Yeah.
But I think it's a really cool way of looking at it, and I'll let you expand upon that. But yeah, that's my number 4.
So my number 3 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Again, I mean, we've kind of talked about it before a couple of times, but this is a superhero movie that actually has a different genre feel to it. It's a very, like you said before, it's an espionage thriller. Feels a lot like I think you even said it like a 70s espionage movie.
Yeah, it feels a bit like that at times.
Yeah. And again, when you're me at this stage, change of pace and something fresh is more than welcome. And when they change the pace and give you something as incredible as Winter Soldier, well, hell, give me more of this, please.
Yeah, it's. I was quite surprised when I first saw it, and I think that there is a reason that people rate it as highly as they do. So, did you already mention Civil War?
Yep.
So that was your top. So yeah. All right.
Yeah, Civil War was 8 for me.
Yeah. No, I do think it is one of the best. So I totally buy anyone putting it top of their list or near the top of their list anyway, top tier stuff. My number 3 is the Avengers. It's again, it's the one for me that got me into them. Like, it's okay, this is like really something I'm really invested in now, and putting all those characters together and making it work. Which actually I should say about Infinity War, like the amount of characters you have in that film alone, and it works and isn't a complete mess. Pretty remarkable, I think. But the Avengers, it's balanced so well. Rewatching it now, I will say that it feels a little Joss Whedon-y. Like every character is very witty. Has almost the same kind of sarcastic humor. But I just think that particularly the final battle sequence in New York is so well put together. It's like a wrestling match, you know, just the way it opens, and then like the heroes come in and they're overpowered, and then Hulk comes in and levels out the playing field. They wreck shit up, and it's like they're gonna win this, and then the aliens take over. I think they have like the big flying worm thingies, and Hulk comes in and takes one down. It's like, wow, he's done it. And then 3 more just come down, and it's like, oh God. And then they get their asses kicked, and then they make the big comeback. Like, it's just so well done. And Loki, I think, is probably the second best villain. You know, he's flip-flopped around from face and heel throughout the series. But here he's very much the villain, and I think Tom Hiddleston really just choose the scenery in the best possible way in this one. And you know, we've already been shown in the previous Thor movie that he feels so slighted by his father, and he feels like he's destined for more. You know, he has that kind of inferiority complex with his brother. So I buy into him kind of, you know, being sent down to Earth by Thanos, and he's like, I'm going to rule all of you. It works for the character. It's not just a typical I will rule everything. It kind of fits his MO, so to speak. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic film. So my number 3.
My number 2, Avengers Endgame, which should be fresh in everybody's hearts and minds. Incredible. Three movies for the price of one. You get your miserable effects of the previous movie in that first act. You get a great little time travel movie in the second act, and the third act is just an action movie wrap up to 11 years of great movies, and there isn't really a drop off at all. Like the first act, all of the weight and stuff. Again, going back to my running theme, when they're showing the after effects and Captain America in a support group and being a superhero in real life, not doing anything crazy to save the day, but just being a shoulder to lean on, like that's a true superhero. Like that was such a nice touch for me. Like that was such a big deal, being there when he doesn't have to, use his shield. He's just got to, help emotionally. That the first quarter is just so emotionally heavy, and to see just how much Tony Stark is affected by oh yeah, it was spoilers. How affected he is by the loss of Spider-Man. You didn't expect him to be that emotional, but this was Tony Stark's emotional journey. This movie, even during the time travel thing, when he goes back and hugs his dad, like, oh yeah,
that scene is so perfectly done. Like they so easily could have gone for the jugular with that one and had him be all like, "Oh, Dad," all that kind of stuff. He kind of gets his resolution with his father,
yes,
without coming out about it in his own kind of very Tony Stark kind of way.
Right, exactly. And listen, if you're gonna point to something, the middle, the time travel stuff is a little cockeyed, a little wait what, but whatever. You're there for the ride. They've explained it enough. If you're really gonna get that caught up about it and butterfly effect, and it's just it's a superhero movie. Just let them get there. The ending is worth the 11-year wait, I guess. Great movie. I as somebody who had no sort of investment last year, this is the first time that I was genuinely fired up for a superhero movie in years, and I was pleased. I was thoroughly pleased with the product we got. So,
anything else you want to say before I get to it?
No.
Yeah, I suppose we'll talk about it more when I get to it, which won't be in this next one. So my number 2 is Thor Ragnarok.
Ooh.
You say Guardians DLC, I say Guardians Deluxe Edition. Like,
okay.
I feel like this was my Guardians. Like, it's like, okay, if this is how much other people enjoyed Guardians, I get it. The humor just works so much better for me on this one, and part of that I think is the unique flavor of Taika Waititi getting a New Zealander who's a very funny, performer and writer and director, and a performer in the movie is Korg, one of my favorite characters I think in the whole series. But it's just it doesn't take itself too seriously. Even Kate Blanchett, very dark character. This woman who just again, she's the fact that it's Kate Blanchett, I think elevates it. Otherwise, it's a fairly she has the history being the sister of Thor and Loki and stuff, and there's that kind of hidden backstory of Asgard that Odin hid from everyone. But it almost feels like she's having fun with it, where it's just like it's just a goofy kind of superhero movie. So, I certainly think, oh god, like I don't get invested in her as a good heel, but but she's a nice kind of a little bit more of a personal villain for Thor to kind of contend with, and I love that. The whole idea is when she's in Asgard, she's even more powerful than even Thor. She breaks his hammer at the beginning. So the end game of this, no pun intended, sorry, is not the defeating her, it's destroying everything, because that's the only way to stop her, basically. So just, again, I like it when they can beat the villain in a different way than just, being stronger than them and beating them up a bit. So and just the colors, like you said, very colorful film. You know, very the 80s. I mean, I think at this point, people need to calm down a bit on the 80s kind of throwback synthesized score. I like it, I dig it, I'm always going to enjoy it, but I do think it's being leaned on so much in the past like 5 years or so.
Like the Inception noise in trailers.
Yeah.
All right, we got it.
But I really like it here. I think it suits, and it's just really fun. Jeff Goldblum is hysterical. You know, Loki, I like how Loki's character progresses, and I think the moment where you know, he has the flashback of Odin, which is a really cheesy moment when he's like, "I'm not as strong as you," and he's like, "No, you're stronger." But somehow Anthony Hopkins makes it work, and then you just have that incredible moment where he jumps down with Led Zeppelin playing, and it's just like fucking awesome. Just a great movie moment. So this was my favorite up until a few days ago, I think.
And my number one is Avengers Infinity War, also known as Endgame Part 1.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. The running theme for me, you know, stakes. There were stakes. There were finally stakes in a superhero movie. And as far as this movie is concerned, when it ended, they lost. They lost. There was massive loss of life. And shit, that's all I ask for sometimes. Even if it were just the ending, I'm like, oh, this is a great movie. They all died. Yeah, it did. So what you alluded to earlier, the fact that the movie, Thanos is like the protagonist of this movie. This is Thanos' story. And shit, you want to argue any good villain in the Marvel series, I'll show you Infinity War and say good luck. They do an incredible job with his story. With I mean, shit. I actually, when he gets the Soul Stone, I genuinely felt for what he was going through. I didn't feel for him, but I understood it meant something to him. It wasn't as easy as this is what I need to do. There was some, you know, some torment, some acting there, some just. There's a lot to this movie, and if I could pair Infinity War and Endgame, or maybe they'll make a box set edition where you get both in one box. I would really like to see what the experience is like, start to finish, Infinity War and Endgame. But I prefer, like, they're like 1 and 1A for me, because I enjoyed Endgame that much. But I certainly loved the fact that there were stakes and they followed through on it. Granted, it only lasted a couple hours, but as far as the end of this movie is concerned, they lost.
Well, and you could say in universe it lasted 5 years as well. So
sure.
They get to sit with that as far as the story is concerned. But yeah, you get some pathos with Thanos for sure. He like all the best villains, I think, have motivations to where they believe what they're doing is right, not wrong. You know, that's when you get into fairly stereotypical villains, and that's it works for some films, but and it would have worked here to have another one of the villains, but you get all the heroes fighting together and the epic scale that they mount it would work. It'd be really great, but to have a really nuanced villain, I think, just makes the whole 2 films. I mean, they originally announced it as Infinity War Part 1 and 2, and then they're, oh no, it's a different movie.
Don't worry.
But no. Yeah, I think that's probably what really makes it kick is Thanos, I think. Anything else you want to add about Infinity War?
Which makes your one Endgame, right?
Yeah. And, you know, it's not like I watch it as like best Marvel film ever. You know, I've watched it a few times in the cinema, and but I've never done that. Well, except for the first Avengers and the second. Okay, I watched all of the Avenger movies twice, but that was like see it with someone else.
It's just like easily like the 16th or 17th time I've done this.
But I mean, this time I literally went on my own 2 more times. You know, I've never done that for a Marvel movie. And part of that, the reason I saw it so many times was just to soak up that opening weekend experience and the reactions. It's unlike anything except maybe Last Jedi with the throne room sequence. The whole third act of Avengers with some of the big moments, you just feel this fucking electricity in the room that was just addicting.
I feel like I robbed Emily of some of the experiences because every now and again, like on your left, Emily leans over. She's like, "Is this a big deal?" I'm like, "It kind of is."
My brother, who just walked in, actually, we took him to see it at midnight, and he's like 13 now or something. But growing up, taking him to the cinema, lots of like whispering about this and that. It's like, just watch the film. And at the beginning of Endgame, when Hawkeye's family disappear, he was like, I just was like, just don't be like this, because there's a lot more to come. But thankfully, he kind of like reined it in a bit. But and even that midnight premiere, you're hearing sobs and people crying and stuff. And I certainly didn't cry, but I rolled a single tear a couple of times when we saw old Captain America. That scene just really gets me. I think it's just a phenomenal way to end his character.
I'm the only person who got choked up when Iron Man and Spider-Man hugged. Like I
get that is such a great arc from like the joke in Homecoming. Like he goes to Lee's like, we're not there yet, and that scene, he doesn't say anything, Stark.
Yeah.
It's just his reaction, and it's brilliant.
This is nice.
And I think it's his best performance in the Marvel films for sure. Robert Downey Jr. Even taking Infinity War off the table, just his performance in Endgame, like when he's really pissed off at the beginning about Captain America. Yeah. Brilliant acting. And then you see the warmth that he brings and the believability of his relationship with his daughter, which I thought was a great addition to his character. And even though it's sad that he ended up, spoilers, dying, the fact that he got 5 years to be a dad is really nice.
Yeah.
And the whole movie is a little bit about obviously being a hero and making that sacrifice and stakes, but also parental relationships are a huge part of the story, with Thor kind of getting his mojo back a bit by seeing his mother, Stark with his dad, and then obviously leaving his daughter behind without father, but with a father who literally saved the universe. As you say, the time travel is like, so if Gamora kills herself, how is she still alive?
Yeah.
But I have seen it a few times.
It's in the past. Don't worry about
it. They go to great lengths to kind of even poke fun at themselves and say, Back to the Future is a little bullshit. I'm game with them setting up their own rules for time travel. And I've seen people say, literally, I see people online going, well, the way that time travel works, and I'm like, let me just stop you there. What are you talking about? Like, literally, all you've got to go off is fantasy, movies. So, I'm sure people will be dissecting that forever as far as like what was this and what was that. But for me, at the end of the day, it's all about the reaction. If I didn't have this, like goosebumps running all over me, like holy shit at the end, maybe I'd start looking more closely at the the loose ends of the time travel stuff. But even then, it's just, and again, we're not going to go into the whole movie because we've talked a lot about these films already. But I think just the payoff of everything is, I don't think there'll ever be another movie like it. I'm sure they'll try. And when you think about it, it really is only like 10 years, which isn't that long. They could conceivably build up to that again. But will lightning strike twice with those characters and the actors who portrayed them? Like, I don't know anything about the Iron Man character, but I feel like Robert Downey Jr. is like the perfect Iron Man, in the same way like Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, and me in my little corner going, and Michael Keaton is Batman. But you have these actors who like, they just own that role, and he does feel like the kind of the grandfather, the forefather of this whole MCU.
Sure.
And obviously he gets his moment at the end when he kind of saves everything. That scene when Cap picks up the hammer, like that is another thing that pays off a joke from a previous movie.
Yep.
But it's such a, like, I recorded the audio in the cinema, which I usually, when I go to a midnight premiere, I'll just stick my recorder on in case there's any good reactions. I did it with the Star Wars movies as well. And I just go, what the fuck? I've never exclaimed like that. So, people say fan service. I say, you're goddamn right. I was thoroughly serviced as a fan. And like you said, I have never been this excited for a film or invested in a Marvel movie. Even a superhero movie. The last time was probably The Dark Knight Rises, when I was really amped up for a superhero film. But yeah, I think they did a great job. clipping all the branches and providing some. It's, you know, like again, you say that it's like a 3-part kind of thing. You have that thing at the beginning where they really let everything settle in.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite things is at the beginning they kill off Thanos. You know, it's a great moment. I went for the head
Unceremoniously, just yeah. All right.
And it provides them with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much Thanos has won. You know, it's just like, you know, Thor gets to do what he fucked up on before, but it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets depressed about it and, you know, whatever, and lets himself go. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a fun element to the character that also had a bit of weight behind it when, you know,
wait, Thor, wait, no pun intended.
I can't believe I didn't even see that after I'd even said it. But yes, I like the Hulk gimmick. You know, I think that's fun. When you can do something different with these characters, I'm all for it. I really like that Ant-Man had a big part to play in this because I really like him in the other movies.
I don't know if I told you this, but I had a little bit of a whispering voice that was telling me months ago, Ant-Man's the key to Endgame. And I was like, all right. But sure enough, that person knew their stuff.
And like even in the midnight premiere, the scene in the elevator, which is a pretty cool scene. I wouldn't say it's much more than that. People applauded that thing, and so it was just such an experience. You know, it's like it's not that great, but I'm loving that we're all getting this. It was a cool.
Yeah, I had like 8 or 9 applause moments in my. Granted, I was at the first screening on a Thursday night, but it was you know, the experience alone is something.
Yeah,
like we've had this discussion on Show Business. This could be like our Empire Strikes Back, where, you know, because it's already just making like gangbusters. You know, kids someday will be
event,
right. What was it like? What was it like when you watched it?
That worked. I've gone on record with this a couple of times over the past year. The main thing I wanted to see was, because they have so many characters, and they're obviously going to bring back the other half. I wanted a battlefield scenario, Thanos in the middle with the Infinity Gauntlet or whatever, and every character circled around him. The camera panning around, playing that Avengers theme in kind of an inverse of the circle in the first one.
Sure.
This time they're circling him. But when I think about it now, well, what would have happened? They would have just killed him. But they did that in the sense of he brought his army, and you just have this two like rallying cries. Unbelievable. And the way that they build it up, that piece of score is so good. The drums starting and the portals opening on your left, very nice touch, and then just everyone coming in. It's overwhelming. There's real, you know, hairs on the back of your neck moment kind of thing.
I don't know if it's Infinity War or Endgame. One of Thanos's themes in one of those movies was really, really good. Yeah,
Sylvester's great, and I think he really, and like even like little bits in like when Tony meets Howard, his father, like there's a kind of a jazzy kind of 70s vibe to the score that's really fun, and it's just a really, really random, tiny, no pun intended, moment where Ant-Man goes inside the arc reactor of Iron Man, and as he slides down, the score's like it's fun, you know, he has fun with the score, but when it really counts, it proper builds to this crescendo. And I think that's and I don't think they've ever said Avengers Assemble, which apparently is this kind of, you know, buzzword from the comics. And
they did say it in Endgame.
Yeah, I mean, up until that point, like, you know, in the UK, the Avengers is called Avengers Assemble.
Yeah,
because there's some
on your steelbook it says that.
Yeah, I have both because I just wanted because actually they edited the Blu-ray in the UK. They cut out the blade coming out of Coulson's chest, which was very bizarre. So I had to buy the US version as well. But yeah, so like that's kind of at the end of Ultron, I think he goes Avengers, and then he cuts off before he says it. So kind of holding off for like 22 movies to say that line when it would mean the most, I kind of think is really cool. But anyway, so that's it's definitely my favorite. I think just beats out Thor because it just has more emotion to it. And I was same with Infinity War, pretty staggered that they juggled so many characters. You know, I mean, there's some of the characters who come back at the end of Endgame who just don't really have anything, but that's fine. But there's a lot of characters who have a lot of, you know, time. Obviously, it being 3 hours long, but it's all handled very well, I think. So. Yeah, that's that, I think. Anything else you want to touch on before we round this?
22 films. No,
Yeah.
I'm good.
All right. So 2 questions from Isaac. Any Keaton performances you don't care for? Honestly, not that many. He's my favorite actor, and I've watched all of his films. There's a couple that the film isn't very good, and so there's not much he can do with, I suppose. But none really spring to mind as, oh, that wasn't very good. I think he always seems to do the best he can, and I really like him, so it's difficult to judge. And how many Star Wars films have you rewatched in the cinema, though? So that only counts for the newer ones, which would be Force Awakens. I saw 4 times. Rogue One I saw twice. Solo was twice. And that was just to see it with Connie. I wasn't fussed on seeing Solo again. And then Last Jedi is my all-time record, 8. So that is that. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, CP, for joining me, even though you've already been talking about Endgame to death.
Well, we didn't have to talk about the movie at length.
Sure, yeah. I'm still kind of gearing up to really get into it, I suppose, when I do my own video on it. But yeah, so it's certainly delivered, and I'm really intrigued, just to end on this, where the hell they go from here. Because it's just like, I have no idea how they're going to. But the thing is, if you look at their it's ridiculous that they've made this many films in such a short span of time.
Yeah.
There's no real bad ones.
A lot went right. A lot went right.
There's not much that they've kind of messed up on. You know, there's been a few hiccups, like the Edgar Wright thing with Ant-Man, you know, but and I still really would love to have seen how that would have turned out. Could you imagine like the kind of finesse of like Baby Driver in Ant-Man, you know,
with money behind it too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think he was developing that for years as well, which is a real shame. But anyway, but regardless, it turned out all right. But
right.
I'm wondering, when are they ever going to misstep? It's got to happen eventually, because I don't see them slowing down anytime soon.
Sure.
But or maybe it'll just be a case of just people slowly lose interest. I don't know.
I think that's probably more likely.
Yeah, it's probably just a dwindling, diminishing returns, perhaps. Although I don't see that happening for a very long time.
At least not this week.
Exactly right. Yeah, so it's already like the number 6 of all time as far as the grosses are concerned. So that's pretty unheard of. I think.
Doing just fine.
Just fine. Yeah. So I mean, if anything we can learn from the past couple of months, it's if you want to make a lot of money, you put Brie Larson in the movie.
Bankable.
So there we go. So thank you for watching, everyone. And again, thank you for joining me. And we'll see you, no doubt, with another stream at some point in the future. Goodbye.